Hello, and welcome back to Within Crisis. We're on episode 12. Today we have got a bit of a more relaxed show compared to our dedicated ones. We're talking fighting games. As usual, Ash is with me as always. How are you doing, Ash?
Just like our last our last session, I am eating food, which it's not posing really to it just looks like I'm quite gluttonous. I eat a lot of food, but that's not the case. I've timed it quite poorly.
Always.
When we have one of our streams, and then when I'm supposed to eat.
Yes. Your time management has always been crazy, is to put it politely.
It's udon noodles, so it's Chronos.
Cool. And as always with these shows, we like to bring guests on just because me and Ash, we talk bollocks and we want someone to rein it in with some actual facts. First up is Chronos, also known as Adam. Welcome into the show, sir. How are you?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm doing good. It's a bit earlier for me than it is for you guys, but yeah. It's going well.
Earlier than your usual podcast start times as well.
Yeah.
So it must feel a little bit nicer. And to round us out for a 4-person show, friend of mine and Ash's through Final Fantasy XIV, part of our free company, Zhphyr. How are you, sir?
I'm fine. Thanks for having me, dude.
Good having you all in.
I'm tired, but
yeah,
good to have a talk.
Yeah, take your mind off work for a little while.
Oh yeah.
So the thing we like to do here on Within Crisis when we bring guests on is dive into your history with gaming. Doesn't just have to be video games, it could be tabletop, trading cards. Even if you ended up on a game show, who knows? So Zeph, let's start with you. How did you get into gaming? What's your journey?
I think like everyone really, like playing Super Mario. That was my first game ever. Like first Super Mario, my dad got me a little Nintendo, and it's basically I've been addicted since then. For fighting games, it's been Street Fighter actually. That was my intro drug, and then I just went from there.
Yeah, I think Street Fighter was my first fighting game. Thinking back on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, I actually, to me, it was kind of different because my godfather had a coffee shop, and he had an arcade machine for Street Fighter 2.
Oh, nice!
Like the very first version of Street Fighter 2. So every time we lived very far away, but every time I would go there, I'd just sit on that fucking machine and just hammer the game. Just ask for 50 cents every time to my godfather. It was like, okay, take this take these quarters and just go spend them on the machine. I would just play there for hours.
Oh, you can't fault that.
Yeah, I've been hooked ever since.
Yeah, like, obviously, I know you through playing Final Fantasy. I've seen you play God of War, Destiny, so gaming has definitely stuck with you over the years.
Yeah, I play a bit of everything. Fighting, I've grown a bit out of fighting games, but I still do play very few of them. Like, there's like these very few games that I really like to play, and there's Street Fighter 6 incoming, and there's Tekken 8 incoming, and those two are I'll definitely play them.
Yeah, Tekken 8 is the one I'm looking forward to the most coming up.
I'm crazy about Street Fighter 6, to be honest.
I can remember, to segue into Adamir, I remember when the first trailers were shown, I tweeted out, I was like, what do you think? And you're like, King of Fighter.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, it's because of like where I started. I feel like I'm one of those like cranky old people that like would rather play the older ones. So it's like the newer ones don't get me as hype anymore. I feel like, although Tekken, I am excited for Tekken 8, but I think it's because I'm more of an average Tekken player. I wouldn't consider myself like I played competitively for quite a while. The Street Fighter series is where I started also. But if you want to take it back further than that, I mean,
you go as far back as you want to go, man. Your introduction now.
I mean, I've been playing games since I can remember, pretty much. My dad was like big into arcades before I was even born. So when me and my brother were born, that was like a big thing. Is he would take us to the arcades too, back when they existed here. They're pretty dead nowadays, but yeah. So like that's kind of where I started playing. Their old traditional stuff, Pac-Man, Galaga kind of stuff, old school. And then I started playing fighting games because I realized if I could get good at it, I could make my quarters last longer. So like that was part of the reasoning. So then kind of just grew up through that. Played a lot of Street Fighter, Killer Instinct back in the day. Then Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was probably the big one that like really made me like go onto forums and start like learning. Still was not very good, but like I started like learning. And then I got heavy into like tabletop stuff after that. And started getting really competitive. And then when I realized how much money I was spending on like card games, I got back into fighting games because I was like, I could spend $60, and get really good at this game. I'll have to buy the new set to keep playing. So I'd say like around the time Street Fighter 4 came out, there was like a big resurgence, like in like just the amount of people playing. And I started entering like online tournaments, ran into like people like Justin Wong, getting destroyed by him. And then I just started traveling and like exploring like the local scene here. I live in Virginia in the States, and figured out it was kind of bigger than I thought. And probably for about a decade or so, I was traveling, playing pretty much any fighting game I could get my hands on, and I felt like I was decent at. So that was like, Street Fighter 4 for quite a long time until it kind of died out when Street Fighter 5 came out. Played Street Fighter 5. Marvel vs. Capcom 3 was a big one. And then like, Mortal Kombat. Tried Tekken 7. I wouldn't really consider myself a super great 3D fighting game player, but so, Soul Calibur, stuff like that. So I've played a lot, and I don't just play fighting games, I guess. That was just like a big passion. I do play a lot of RPGs. So I had a Final Fantasy 14 podcast that obviously you're going on now. So I play that too. So I play a little bit of everything. But I was definitely like a big, huge fighting game. And anything I can take competitively, I have like a big like competitive drive. So like, and it's a good and a bad thing, because sometimes you play a game and you like, casually they get to experience it a different way. And I'm just like, tell me how to play this thing like the best way possible. Yeah. Like that's just my mindset. And it's good and bad sometimes. So that's just how it is.
Yeah. Tell me the frame information. Where can I skip into the next animation?
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh, nice. So, any other little stories you guys like to share before we move into the main show?
Yeah, obviously, you wanted the two guests on the show to go into the background of gaming. Obviously, mine's kind of been covered by that, obviously, in our previous episodes. However, I do have one for fighting games, and it was not a game I don't believe I heard any of you mention. My first experience of fighting games was my brother had a Sega Saturn, and it was Virtual Fighter 2.
Mhm.
So yeah, this is just a real odd one there to put out. But yeah, that was my.
Yeah, I think I started with Super Street Fighter 2 on the SNES. Bit of Mortal Kombat. Killer Instinct. Yeah, I played a lot more fighting games when I was young compared to current day. You know, like my parents would go to like a car boot sale and just come back with a chunk of games. Like, here you go. We spend like a couple of pennies and then come back with 10 or so games and try a few. It's like, oh, this looks cool. Remember, especially Killer Instinct going to Cinder, just the animation style back then, just like, holy crap. Same with Mortal Kombat, it was that sort of realism to the sprites that just drew me in. It's like, holy shit, this looks amazing. Compared to, you know, coming from playing a bit of Atari and Pitfall and everything being, okay, my imagination's on work here.
Dude, I remember having Tekken 3. Like, my parents, I asked them for a PlayStation. And then when they actually gave me the PlayStation, it came with Tekken 3. For 4 years straight, my dad didn't give me a fucking game. So for 4 years, all I played was Tekken 3. So that's why, one of the reasons I'm so passionate about Tekken.
Yeah.
And I do enjoy it a lot. Like, I still have, I think it's Tag Tournament 2, which I won in a tournament they made on our local store, one of our local stores. I won the tournament against like a ton of people, and one of the guy I met at the finals was one of my best friends. And then as soon as I sit down, he looks at me. He's like, "Oh, fuck, had to be you." And I just 3-0'd them. It was best of 5, so I just 3-0'd them, and then just went on his way. But every time I see a Tekken game, I'm really passionate about it because I really enjoy it. Street Fighter, like my favorite one, Street Fighter 4. The old ones, sure. I won a lot of tournaments here in Portugal on Street Fighter 4. And the problem in Portugal is that the scene is not that big. So it kind of sucks. It was cool when I was in the UK. When I lived in the UK, it was cool because a lot more people played. I met Reinhardt. I don't know if Chronos know who he is.
Yep.
Yeah, I met Reinhardt and he beat the shit out of me. He's just that good. But yeah, in the UK the scene is very good. And it was enjoyable. Here in Portugal, you know, we have a very small scene, and arcades are not a thing anymore, which is sad, because arcades were the best. Just like Chronos, I can relate that I learned to play learned to play fighting games well because I wanted my quarters to go for a longer time. So that's basically my story about liking fighting games.
Yeah, it was just different too because you're playing against like a human, right? Like a lot of the older games, like it's just kind of like do the same thing a lot of times over and over again. Whereas like you add like the human element to it, and just
I
makes
think
it
with
a
the
lot
older
more fun.
games, after the reason I didn't stick with fighting games was just because of the AI cheated so much back in the day.
Oh yeah,
like,
100%.
Like Street Fighter 2, I don't think I ever beat Sagat.
Yeah.
Don't think I ever beat him.
Forward. Yeah, Bison could walk forward and do a charge move. Yeah.
And then with Mortal Kombat, it was always a case of get a Shang Tsung and just hope and pray he doesn't go Kano, because all he would do was that cannonball every single time.
When I had Mortal Kombat on the Game Boy, it was Sonya Blade kept going for that low sweep all the time, the low kick, and that pissed me so much.
So as you can tell, folks, we are into our main show now. And welcome in, Tark. Good to have you in chat. Oh, bloody hell. That's a walk to play some more Kombat, walking 3 miles. Yeah, the only time I've really played any fighting games in the arcade has been like on a family holiday. I remember growing up going to Pontins, which is like a budget UK holiday destination, and they used to have Tekken 3 on the machine. So I played that. I wasn't very good at Tekken at the time. Then years later, I went to the arcade when Tekken 6 was out in arcade but not on consoles. I was like, alright, I'll give it a try. Chucked a quid in, gave you 2 lives. Bloody rip-off system. I was like, oh, they've got Lily. Right, I should know how to play Lily. Right, where's my kicks, where's my punches? I managed to get to Azrael. Is it the last guy in 6? The demon dog thing. Yeah, I managed to get to that. It's like, right, this is not as good as I should be playing Lily. And yeah, I just managed to beat it on 1 quid and just like, yeah, I'll walk away now. I'm happy. I'll get Tekken 6 when it comes out on console and play it my own way.
Yeah, I mean, I went to like local laundromats and stuff, which here used to have like arcade machines, and they had Street Fighter 2 there. I played that. UMK 3 was a big one. I remember they like took out a machine and then put in like Street Fighter the movie, the game. And I was like really disappointed. Okay. Not many people really enjoy that one. No. And then I would say like when arcades are still somewhat relevant, it was like I said, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was when I really started like learning. But then the crazy thing was I played and I thought I was decent. I was still pretty young. And then I remember like just watching like actual good people play the game, and it looks like a completely different game. Like fighting games are kind of like that. Like if you play in your little bubble, it's still fun, right? Because like everybody's kind of learning and doing the same stuff. And then once you like see outside that bubble, you realize you're like, whoa, like these people are doing way different stuff. Like when I remember seeing Marvel 2 tournaments for the first time back in like 2003, 2002. And like, I was like, I'm not even playing the same game as them. Like they're doing things that like it was like just unreal. And I was like, I gotta learn that. And then it was really hard. That game's really hard. And then I'd say when I took a break for a while, came back. Street Fighter 4 is probably my favorite. Also, honestly, like I played so much Street Fighter 4. It was like basically during that period of time, it was pretty much like I was in college, so it was like work, go to school, play Street Fighter, maybe get some sleep, repeat.
Yeah, such is the way.
But the point out, you're saying about like the early 2000s. That's like probably the most like highlight for you when it comes to fighting games. Just want to point out that period of time for fighting games, the music they actually had. Probably the good example here was Mortal Kombat: Deadly Alliance. I remember my brother had that on GameCube, and the soundtrack to that was incredible.
Mortal Kombat's always that good music, no less than. But yeah, talk bringing up Soul Calibur 2, the GameCube version, Link, he was so cheesy as a character. He had so many gadgets that just literally pulls out of his ass and throws at you. You couldn't react. Like, out of the 3 exclusives, I prefer Link over Spawn and Hayachi, I think was PS2.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that's right. Spawn was Xbox.
You have the latest one where you have Geralt he's so fucking cheap as well.
Yeah. If you go back to not Street Fighter, Soul Calibur 4, you had Darth Vader. Also very cheap.
What is it about guest characters and they just become cheesy as shit?
Yeah,
it's a guess thing, I think.
Yeah, Mortal Kombat lately, I feel like does a better job. Like they're not really broken.
Yeah,
I feel like they do better at like integrating it. But like back in the day, if you had a guest character, they're usually pretty cheap and typically banned in tournaments. Yeah. So
yeah, the most broken one they have on Mortal Kombat was Alien.
Oh yeah, and 10.
One.
I think that was 10. Yeah,
10. Yeah, he was the most broken one that they did because he just had some cheap mix-ups. It was really hard to react to.
Yeah, I played 10 for a bit. I got really heavy into Injustice too, because I'm also like a really big comic book fan, which is why I kind of resonate with like Marvel vs. Capcom. Also, get to play all the comic book characters.
The stories lately have been really good in the fighting games, especially Injustice and all the stuff out in NetherRealm.
NetherRealm does a really good job of making a good single player experience. Like you really feel like I feel like a lot of more casual people have a tougher time getting into fighting games because when you buy that $60, $70 product, like if you're not interested in the multiplayer, or that's like not the biggest reason for you, like that was a big complaint of Street Fighter Five when it came out. Is Street Fighter Five was literally like you bought it and like that was it. It was like you went online or you went into training mode. And so that's kind of hard to sell more casual people that kind of just want to play with their friends and maybe mash around a little bit, maybe fight the computer. But like NRS does a really good job of like giving you another reason to play the game. That's not necessarily just because you're playing a fighting game. It just happens to be a fighting game.
Yeah.
I mean, Injustice was adapted to a comic book from the game, so.
I just introduced that game to my 4-year-old.
Mm.
So he was playing
Yeah.
it the other day, Justice 2.
Honestly,
I enjoy that game a lot.
the first one was probably one of my more successful competitive games. It helped that I played probably the best character in the game at the time. So that kind of carried me a little bit, but I was playing Superman when the game first came out, before he got nerfed.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, there was a lot of...
That's some cheap shit.
Yeah, he was pretty cheap. He could... I mean, the thing was walk speeds in that game are very slow. So,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
so when you have like long-reaching things that are like that just get you in kind of for free, it's very cheap.
That's what I was enjoying Green Arrow for a while.
Yeah, yeah, he was pretty fun too. I like a lot of characters in that game for the most part, but yeah, it's very obvious once you start like really learning like why the characters that C play. And Injustice 2 is a lot more balanced in that regard. There's a lot more variety as far as characters go, just because it's not the same. It's the same, but not like it's a lot more better balanced. I feel like that's another thing with fighting is nowadays. You go back and you play older fighting games and you really look at them; they're not balanced at all. Like like Street Fighter 2, Sagat is a big example. Very cheap. And you know, like
nasty.
Yeah, like Mortal Kombat 3, you got smoke, hits you one time and you die. Things like that. So
I always love to go to Tekken quickly. Jack, when he just does his little walk, doing clink, and just see half an health bar just disappear if you get caught with it.
Oh, the chop, yeah.
Yeah. The old karate chop.
He looks interesting in the new game too, like Jack 8.
He's top tier on. He's kind of top tier on 7, actually.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Yeah, he's pretty good on 7.
Tekken usually does a really good job too, even historically with balance. I mean, I think their world champion from a couple of years ago played the Panda, and most people consider the Bears pretty bad. So
rank 2.
Yeah, so Tekken's pretty cool. And I think it's really just because like the move lists are short novels. Like it's kind of daunting when you first learn the game, but they're so deep and different that it's hard to account for all these situations. And so you can do like there's a lot of player expression in Tekken. I feel like that other games don't have as much.
There was a guy I used to play against years ago. I think this is around Tekken 5, Tekken 6. And just because Tark brought up King in chat, he mapped certain combos of King to the shoulder buttons on his controller, just so he could go into them and weave them better. Yeah. He was a nightmare to go up against if he was King. Just because he would just get out, right, I'll do this Tenet combo now because I've hit you once. Oh, you've countered me? Next Tenet combo? Yeah, bloody
peripherals are an interesting thing too. I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody started out on a pad, but during Street Fighter 4 was when I really was like, I can't do this anymore, and I bought my first arcade stick.
Yeah, a couple of buddies I was in university with, they was playing Tekken non-stop for the 3 years I was there, and they ended up buying fighting sticks.
Yeah. I mean, nowadays people are going back to the pad. It's funny, and you have like hitboxes, which are basically like huge keyboards, but a little bit different. It's kind of interesting to see that kind of like it was like pad was in the competitive scene. It was like pad was considered bad, and now it's considered like really good because you can like hide your like if I'm banging on a stick next to you and playing a tournament, you can hear that, right? Like, but if you're on a pad, it's a lot easier to hide the fact that you're like maybe mashing a Shoryu or something.
Yeah, like got a DualShock 5 next to me, and realizing that like even compared to the 4. Just mashing it is so much quieter.
Yeah. For me, yeah. Go ahead.
I remember playing with the arcade stick and just having some keys mapped with nothing,
Oh, hitting empty buttons. Yeah, that's a strat.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just go to empty buttons and just try to get in his head, because it was hard because people react on sound most of the times. They would react on sounds, and I remember a buddy of mine. He fell for it every single time. He was just like the guy I trained to go to tournaments. He had a really good Bison on Street Fighter 4. He was nasty with Bison, and I would just do empty buttons all the time because it is what it is. And now you see people playing pad, it's weird. It's just weird to me.
I think
See
it's
how good people are.
it's also an accessibility thing too. The games have gotten a bit more like lenient, easy. Like you go back and you try to go try to do a Dragon Punch like on old Street Fighter 2, and then try to do it in like Street Fighter 5 or something. It's in Street Fighter 5 you can like kind of just like roll your stick and kind of mash, and you'll get it because the game is kind of programmed that way. But if you go play an old game, like you got to do the motion.
Oh
And
yeah.
so yeah, I mean Street Fighter 4 kind of started that in a way. Like there's shortcuts in that game too, but they've kind of made it more lenient as it goes, and also like kind of just taken away. Like Street Fighter 4 had like very precise combo timings that doesn't really exist much anymore now either, because they don't want like, I guess they don't want to really hinder people from getting into the game, which makes sense, which is why they're going in that direction.
Yeah,
But-
we're seeing a lot of assist systems now as well, aren't we? Where you can just press
like the
one
simple
button and
modes.
it'll do the combos
Yeah.
and for the people who are more
the
casual
combos.
to
Yeah.
get into.
Yeah, usually they're limited in a way. It's like to not be promoted to play. Like if like once you get really good at the game, you start learning like why they're not quite as good, but they're like good to get you into it. I think Street Fighter 6 has been kind of contentious with like their one. Now they have one button special moves, so like people are going crazy about Guile being able to just hit a button and do a flash kick. Which I mean, on paper does sound really insane. So, but yeah, I mean, the main reason I kind of switched over is like I remember my hands would just hurt from playing characters like Bison and Balrog, like holding back all the time, and my finger would just be like numb. So I started playing on stick, and I did stop having that problem. Now I just have carpal tunnel and on my fingers. So
You're just screwed regardless now.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Alright, since we've been talking about LOL present, let's take it back a bit. I know, Chronos, you've said you didn't play not too much into the 3D scene.
So I would say I played them. Like, I played your Tekken 3. I played Tekken Tag Tournament. I played most of the Tekkens. I played a lot of Soul Calibur 2 for sure, but I never really like got super competitive with those. Those are more like casual.
2 was the last Soul Calibur I really enjoyed because I could actually use the analog stick for certain attacks. I got really good with Sung Mina for a while, but when the Soul Calibur 3 and they removed that, it's like, I can't play this anymore. I don't know what I'm doing.
I was a Killick player, and then Soul Calibur 5 came out, and he wasn't in the game. And I was like, you want me to play this monkey kid that's supposed to be his replacement? I was like, no, I'm good.
I'm trying to think of a game. Feel free with you as well if you've got different suggestions. Bloody Raw.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I played that on the
played that
GameCube.
game. Yeah.
Trying to see
Played that
if
on
I can
PlayStation, I
think of any older franchises that don't really exist anymore.
There's a lot.
There's like Square Enix had a few weird ones over the years, like Erigai's God Bless the Ring, or Herigize.
Yeah, you had Tobal was like another PlayStation 1 fighter. There was I feel like there was like an oversaturation. And I think that's what like before Street Fighter 4, like there wasn't really any fighting games that weren't as popular anymore until Street Fighter 4 came out, because there were just so many people were trying to emulate like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat in the 90s, and it just never really worked. There were some that are hidden in there that are pretty good, like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles fighting game's actually really good, but most people forget that exists.
Yeah, it's like Dead or Alive that used to be a big thing. That keeps, like, I'll hear about it when he released something for Dead or Alive, then it just disappears again, just as quick.
It's still alive, but, too many microtransactions, and it seems like balance in the game is it's completely forgot, so. I tried to play the game recently, and I just couldn't. Just couldn't be bothered. I remember playing a lot of Guilty Gear when I was a kid. A lot of Guilty Gear. And I've always been a fan, especially the soundtracks, because Ash was talking about soundtracks, and you can't talk about soundtracks without talking about Guilty Gear, because that is a very good soundtrack they have since the beginning. And I played that a ton. I played Blast Blue. I tried to get into anime fighting games, but then my wrists would give in because I don't know how people play that. I struggled in MVC 3 to keep up because it's a really fast game, and then I tried anime and yeah, it's just bullshit. People have to be on meds to play those games.
Yeah, with BlazBlue, I was playing on my Vita. That wasn't a good time.
Okay. But lately, the thing I've been playing the most is Grand Blue Fantasy.
Yep. I actually haven't played that, but I played DNF Duel. I did play DNF Duel, which is kind of, I think that's made by like the same people.
Yeah. It's Arc System Works.
Yeah. So I did play that.
Of Guilty Gear.
Yeah, I played Strive. Yeah, I played Strive for a while. I've played a little bit of like Accent Core as well.
Yeah, Strive is good. So.
Yeah, Strive was a lot of fun. I kind of stopped playing. I haven't played in a while, but when I did play, it's fun. It's also like nice nowadays that you can kind of like, you said like your place has like a smaller scene, but like a game like Strive, the netcode is so good that you can play from like almost wherever, which is kind of really nice. Like I remember
back then on Street Fighter 4 was Street Fighter 4 had a really decent netcode.
Yeah, it was okay. Yeah, it was all right. Like I had trouble playing people. Like I live on the East Coast of the United States, so if I wanted to play like West Coast people, which is obviously really far away, it was really hard for me to do that in Street Fighter 4. But I could play people like up in New York and still get good practice, or like people in Florida. But like with Strive, like I was playing people in the EU, playing people in California, and like it was pretty seamless. I mean, not perfect, but about as good as you're gonna get without like being in person, which was really nice. And I hope that that's like a common thing going forward with fighting games, because I think that'll help a lot with like people getting into them, because some people are just really spread out and it's hard to get to learn. Like
I stopped playing 5 because of that, because 5 had really, really bad netcode. It was fucking horrible.
I had that experience with Tekken. I used to play 5 Dark Resurrection a bit back on the PS3 days. That was the only one I really went online with. I managed to get to close to Tekken Lord rank. Thing. So I got above the Cailloux, the Dans, get into the naming conventions. But yes, when 6 came out, even I was just being paired with someone across the planet, and I was just getting shit all the time, but it just felt like my inputs was getting eaten constantly.
Yeah, it could be frustrating. Yeah. I remember I would get frustrated sometimes in Street Fighter 4, just because if you're playing characters that have like those really precise timing things, some characters benefit from it, right? Like if you're playing a character like Blanca, yeah, the lag's probably fine, But if you're trying to play it against Blanca and you're trying to like hit him or punish him for doing things, then it's really frustrating. I tended to play like more aggressive characters too. I was a Rufus player at the beginning of Street Fighter 4. He'll probably never show up in a Street Fighter game ever again, probably for the best.
I think I used to play Cody.
Cody's fun. Yeah.
Prison gear in shackles, yeah.
Yep, that's Cody. Yeah. He's a lot of fun.
I'm Geef.
Are you like a big body player? Like to play the big grapplers? Did you play Tager?
I played Tager, yeah.
Yeah.
I do like to play the big body guys.
Yeah. My brother is like that. My brother loves the big body characters.
And then if I wanted to be sneaky about it, I played give me a sec.
So, while Seth's distracted by his Mrs. Ash, what about you with 3D fighting games in the early days? Anything you played?
Christ. trying to think now. You say early days, but yeah, it was just Sega Saturn. When it came to the PlayStation, I think I did play the first, not the first Tekken. I think it was it which one was Tekken 2 on the PlayStation?
Yeah, 1, 2, and 3,
Yeah.
PS1.
Yep.
So, yeah, I did play Tekken 2, but I think it was more so when, like I think I mentioned when I mentioned the soundtrack with Deadly Alliance, but when fighting games started incorporating like more of a storyline and where you can start like improving your characters as well, it added that kind of, I guess you would say, the RPG element because you get to like unlock certain abilities as well, and it adds that replay value. Where I found that when it came to older fighter games, they were really pick up, play for 5 minutes, put down type of thing. Especially if you got one of like if you got someone to play with, very multiplayer in that sense. But I prefer to like play single player, and I just felt like the more modern fighting games kind of allowed that single player element.
Yeah. Well, it's even the case of we have, well, going back to PS2 and we'd re-release stuff like the Persona Arena games, where they, continue a story-based RPG into a fighting game.
Yeah.
Actually,
that is a fighting game that I have not played, and I'm probably really willing to try. Is the Persona series?
It's actually fairly simple to get started. That game is like, once you start, again, it's one of those games. A lot of fighting games are like that, where like the base level, like once you get to like an intermediate, like and higher level, it gets extremely hard. But Persona does a good job. Like a lot of things are just like one button or two buttons together to do things. But then again, when you start playing someone really good at the game, you just die in one combo. It's like one of those really volatile type games. But it's a lot of fun. And there's like, it has a lot of RPG elements. Like it has those status effects that like affect you differently, which is kind of weird in a fighting game. Like you can silence someone or like paralyze them. So it's kind of interesting in that regard. It's a fun game.
You obviously had the Persona fighting games that came out in between, but it was obviously with Persona 5 you had the
Strikers, the Musu one.
Strikers, Scramble. I never really played Musu games. I had played once or twice the Dynasty Warriors, but I just never really interested me. But I liked how they blended the RPG element and the Musu series really well. So I think, obviously, based off that I probably would enjoy the Persona fighting games from the fact, like you mentioned, they still incorporate a lot of that RPG element to it, and the story as well. It ties in.
Yeah,
I talk bringing up about Smash in chat. Not a series I've ever played.
That is actually the only fighting game I've been playing now, and I like to pick it up and just try. I am awful at it, to a point that one of my nephew's friends was playing it, and he asked, "Oh, do you want to go?" And I went, "Sure, go ahead." I think I picked Lucario, and I can't remember who he played. Either way, he just hammered 12 stages shit out of me, and just getting wailed on by a 12-year-old didn't feel nice.
Yeah. The only game in that style I've played was Digimon Rumble on the PS2.
I remember that game. Yeah.
Because it was Digimon, that's the whole reason I picked it up.
Yeah. I tried to learn to play Melee, like really at a really high level. It's really difficult. It's different. Like, I mean, I'm a Street Fighter player, so I can kind of translate that to almost any 2D game in a way. Even like the anime fighters, even though they play different, you have your air dashes and stuff. It's still, I'm within the confines of 2D. And when, you're a Tekken player, you could probably kind of translate a lot of that to Soul Calibur and DOA. Smash is kind of like its own beast. Although now that genre has kind of evolved, you have more stuff, but nothing really compares to Smash. Like it's a titan.
Yeah, it was one of those things that growing up, I had a SNES and I was on PlayStation, and I was on PlayStation until the 360 and the GameCube. So I missed out on a lot of good Nintendo things, but it was I always heard about Smash, I heard about Melee, heard about Brawl. Like, it was being discussed by people around my circle.
Yeah, Brawl's probably one you could skip, to be honest. Most people, Melee is like still sees a lot of play. Like Melee is still insanely popular for a game that came out in like 2001. And I played a lot of Melee. It's like very technical. There's a lot of like kind of glitchy things too that kind of make it more competitive. And then in Brawl, they kind of like tried to give the middle finger to like the competitive community, which frustrated a lot of people.
That sounds like Nintendo, to be fair.
Yeah, you could trip in that game. Like you could just randomly trip. Like Imagine if you're playing Tekken or whatever, and Jack goes for that chop, and you try to move out the way, and your character just trips because you can't control it, and you get hit. Like that's kind of what Brawl was.
I completely tell you, you just brought something that happened in Blood Bowl into my mind. Because Blood Bowl 2, we're on 3 now, but in 2, you had the animations when you did your dice roll, and I saw this match against Orcs. This Orc did the extra step where you do the extra dice roll to step, and he just tripped and died.
That could happen to you in Brawl. In a tournament. You could be in a tournament, and you just trip and get Falcon punched and you're dead or something like that.
That must be hilarious to watch, but the most frustrating thing on the planet to experience.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is like it was also extremely broken. Like they had to ban several characters because the characters that were good because of that just stayed in the air because you can't trip in the air. So characters like Meta Knight and stuff.
I can see Tart mentioned in the chat the Cydia, and yeah, that's probably a very good point from the fact obviously being Final Fantasy. When the first one came out on PSP, I think we all jumped on it from playing that. And yeah, the first one was incredible. Although, what's the most recent one? Was it NT?
NT, yeah.
Yeah, that was that was a bit of a flop, wasn't it?
It looked interesting time, but the fact it was a 3-on-3 versus the sort of 1-on-1, it was. I didn't gel with it the same way as I did with the original. But yeah, we used to play that a lot. It was one of the only games we saw back in college. People sat in the hallway playing as we was going up to class.
No, that was it. And yeah, it looked incredible as well. Yeah. Actually, was it one of the first because obviously the A-Frame game up to that point, the last fighting game, and I think Tak did mention that was
Energize, God bless the ring.
Yeah, but to actually see some characters from previous Final Fantasy games that were just sprites up to that point, we hadn't seen full 3D models. Yeah. So it was a first for a lot of characters.
Yeah, like X-Def, Gold Bears.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a fun game. Weird storyline. Like, I still, on occasion, play Opera Omnia, the mobile game, and just like, what the fuck is this story?
This will be a question to ask you a lot. So, I was when I was in Japan back in 2016, I got to play Pokken tournament in the
Pokemon
Center, and yeah, I did enjoy that. I liked the fact that you could go from a 3D element where you can move around the map, then you can go into that side-scrolling like the element of the game as well, and I did enjoy that. But would you class Pokemon Stadium a fighting game? It's not, though, isn't it?
Pokemon Stadium, not Pokken. Yeah. So you're talking about like the old Stadium.
Pokken, yes, I would say that's a fighting game, but Pokemon Stadium, on the N64, like
no one I've played, so I have to leave that.
It's like a turn-based fighting game in that sense.
I would probably consider it more like an RPG, honestly, than a fighting game, just because. Yeah, you're making like kind of decisions. I don't know. It's different because and then there's like levels that matter, like what level your stuff is, the different loadouts and stuff, and so it kind of gets more RPG-ish to me than a fighting game. So, but it's
was good.
Yeah, but Pokken. The only thing about Pokken that kind of sucked was it was on the Wii U, so it was really hard, like for tournaments and stuff, to stay relevant because you had to have like all these.
They did release a newer version of it, didn't they, on the Switch?
I think they did eventually.
DX. Yeah. I know Zeph, when he's back, he played it for a while.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they did eventually port it to the Switch. I think it took a little bit of time to do that. And then by that point, it was kind of already kind of on its way out and old. Because I don't even think Nintendo does it at their events anymore. Like because Nintendo does all their things kind of in-house. Like the TCG and the VGC. Honestly, funny enough, Pokemon is a lot more like a card game than other things as well. Like if you ever play like a physical card game, Pokemon's a lot like that, where like your deck is like your team, your whatever team you bring, and your loadout. It's more like a deck of cards.
Yeah, it's like dealing with the I guess the different elements and the status effects as well. Is kind of such a big thing in Pokemon games.
But I mean, those are interesting too. So
yeah, question for you, gents, just because it's on my mind with Virtua Fighter. Do you like when you play certain games and they'll add like mini games aside, like Yakuza is the one that's coming to mind in judgment. The fact that he just flat up, oh, here's Virtual Fighter 2, here's Virtual Fighter 5, completely built inside of this game.
Right, well,
yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I obviously questionable again, not being a purely a fighting game, but the Streets of Rage 4, and you had the little mini kind of games that built into it, and like the Easter eggs that kind of reflect back to the older games I did enjoy.
Streets of Rage 4 is a lot like a fighting game, actually.
Yeah.
That game is very close to being a fighting game. A lot of fighting game players actually really enjoy playing that, just sitting in training mode and learning all the combos in that game. It's kind of interesting. When you say like side games and fighting games, the first thing that comes to my mind is like Tekken Ball.
Yeah.
This is probably the big one, and like Tekken Bowl.
What about Tekken Force back in Tekken 3, if you remember it?
Oh, Tekken Force, yeah, that was like the beat 'em up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just to go back to the Streets of Rage sort of thing.
They made a game out of that, actually, for the the PlayStation Portable.
Sounds right. I mean, Mortal Kombat did one too.
Oh, they did so many different style games. You had Shaolin Monks, you had Special Forces.
I played Shaolin Monks a lot.
Mythology Sub-Zero.
Yeah, Sub-Zero Mythologies.
I don't know if you guys played this one, but I was a big fan of Def Jam.
Oh, yes.
A lot of Def Jam. Yeah.
Def Jam Fight for New York.
Another thing, too, is like, I don't know how heavily y'all are into this or if you were when you were younger, but I was a big wrestling fan. And those old wrestling games are pretty similar to fighting games.
Oh, the old, like, Super Nintendo era ones. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Even, like, the Nintendo 64 ones, like, when you had, like, the Revenge and you had WrestleMania 2000, stuff like that. I remember spending hours and hours playing those games.
Yeah, it's like the memory that comes back to my mind is playing Undertaker. You're doing uppercuts and tombstones coming out of the ground and stuff.
Yeah, you're talking about WrestleMania Arcade. That is a fighting game. That is 100% a fighting game. Yeah, I remember playing that too. Playing Razor Ramon, and his like hands would turn into razors. Yeah.
It was like when I got into wrestling, it was always visiting friends. I was watching it, and at that time it was Triple H. I didn't even know he had a name outside of what it stood for. Then picking up that WrestleMania arcade game, it was like, Hunter Hearst Helmsley. I'm like, holy shit, he has a name.
Yep, that's what he was back in like the mid '90s.
Yeah, like watching like bits of WCW and Stunning Steve Austin, and he had hair, and then you're watching him. Yeah. When he's bald, you're like, are these the same people? But then then you go like Mick Foley, who has 1,000,001 personas.
Right. Yeah. I mean, but that was kind of why I got into the Def Jam fight, because the Def Jam's kind of like a hybrid. It's kind of a wrestling game, but it's also kind of a fighting game. It's interesting.
The one that reminds me most of that is the backyard wrestling games. If you ever played them.
I don't think I ever tried them.
I played a few of them. I can't name them, but I played a few of them as well. Yeah,
it was very anti-Vince McMahon in nature. It's best way to describe it, because of the beef between McMahon and the Insane Clown Posse at the time.
Oh, God. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So, Zeph, welcome back to the conversation after dealing with the missus.
Yeah. No. Problems with neighbors, actually.
Oh, bloody hell.
Hammering at 10 in the evening. And the kid is still up, so, yeah.
That's what you're supposed to do at, almost coming up 10 o'clock.
I know, right?
It's DIY work.
Yeah, but I have to say, one of the things I love about fighting games, watching it at a professional level, is just the shit that comes out of them. Like, seeing old school players in Mortal Kombat 2, and I've remember seeing interviews with Ed Boon and stuff, and just the juggle physics that they didn't even realize was possible in the game engine.
Yeah, I mean, combos weren't even like a thing that they designed the game around. Like when Street Fighter 2 came out, they didn't have a combo counter back in like original World Warrior, because like they didn't even like program the game for that to be a thing. They thought people would just like throw fireballs, do uppercuts. And then people figured that stuff out, and it kind of evolved. And now it's like, you can't make a fighting game if you don't have combos at this point, essentially. So, just little stuff like that. And, I mean, obviously, like, even when they're developing stuff, the players are going to take it 10 times further than they probably even expected it, because they're going to figure out these little small nuances and even like potential glitches that will change just how the game functions. Like that's what I was saying with Marvel 2. It's like you pick up that game and you're like, cool, I can do an air combo, and like it works because that's probably what they intended. But then you watch someone play the game, and it's just like they're doing these things that were like obviously they didn't plan for that to be like possible, like flying multiple times on a combo and just like all over the screen.
Yeah.
Right.
One that
Just the
stands
fact
out for
they
me.
strafed-
Go on, Zeph.
There's just the fact that in MVC2 and then MVC3, you had characters that just flew everywhere at the speed of light. Like I'll give you the example of Magneto, and Doom, which they were fucking annoying to deal with. Because people just figure out patterns, how to do stuff. It is what it is. Because I can assure you that the devs were not thinking that people were just V-dashing everywhere across the screen. You know? It is like MVC3, I did enjoy the game, but it was just a bit too much to me.
Yeah.
I gotta be honest.
I don't know what... go on, Adam.
I was gonna say, like, there's also just like more technical, like just characters like Akuma or whatever, like typically will evolve a lot over time. This because they have like really big move lists and like they're very mobile in like Street Fighter 4. It's just, I mean, like a character like Crimson Viper in Street Fighter 4 wasn't figured out until very late, much later into the game. Well, like in vanilla, I guess it's like later in vanilla where like people figured out you could do all those different kinds of cancels, which is not very obvious. Like they try to teach you. Fighting games also like, I mean, they're getting better at it now, but when you play like a fighting game, they don't do a very good job of like teaching you the mechanics. You kind of have to like do a lot of your own work and go outside of the game to like really learn stuff. So.
Button basher a while, it's like, okay, I'm cancelling this stuff. Why am I doing this? Why it's not happening? And button down into it.
Viper is one good example of that.
But like unexpected stuff. I can't remember if it was Mortal Kombat 9 or 10, but with the way wall bouncing and juggling worked, Kang Lao's insane non-stop combo you could do. Because you kept juggling your opponent into the wall, bounce off, do the Kang Lao spin, hit him twice, dip back on the wall, and you just repeat.
I honestly don't know if you're talking about 9 or 10, because I think he could do that in both games. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's good.
Yeah, because in Mortal Kombat 9, he was absurdly broken at the beginning of that game until they released the guest characters, and then those things were like Freddy Krueger was absurd. And then 10, he's solid, but he can still do kind of similar stuff where he does like his teleports and he's like just constantly juggling you.
Yeah. Who did you always gravitate towards in Mortal Kombat? After Tark bringing up Scorpion in chat, who's my boy.
Yeah, like more of the classic stuff. I was definitely played Sub-Zero. Once he came out in Mortal Kombat 3, I definitely liked Noob Saibot a lot. I know he's like really cheap, but I like Noob Saibot. And so I kind of carried on and played Noob in pretty much every game he was in, like the 3D games. And even in Mortal Kombat 9, where he kind of sucks, I played Noob. And then I didn't play much 10 at all, but then in 11 I also played Noob. But I also play Sub-Zero in those games too, just for fun.
Sub-Zero
so the ninjas, really,
was
any
nice
of the ninjas
over time.
I just got to find out how I just love with the Mortal Kombat games how each one that comes out they try to get more outlandish with the fatalities and try to outdo the previous game. Just how graphic can we make this one?
Oh, when they introduced, when they showed the X-ray system off, I was like, oh yeah, just like blood when we were kids was like holy shit. Then it was just like it's blood. Then we're watching bones break inside. I was like,
did you have the watered down Super Nintendo version or the?
I owned the watered down Super Nintendo one. My buddy had a Mega Drive with the bloody one.
Had the blood.
Yeah, he had the sweat, right? It was like the gray sweat, but you could put in a code, I think, right?
I'm not sure. I only ever played it on the Super Nintendo. I was always just go over to my buddy's house to play on Mega Drive because we actually fight each other, try and learn the fatalities and stuff.
When you discovered that the Mega Drive one had those graphics, did you feel cheated?
A little, but I was also a kid who didn't care.
to play. I cheated my mom into giving me Mortal Kombat 3. So.
Yeah, my mom
With
would
all
play
the
Mortal
blood
Kombat with. Yeah, my mom would play it with me. So it's like, yeah.
I remember doing for the first time, the first fatality I did in front of my mom. She was like, "Oh fuck, what did I do?"
Here's a game you guys may or may not have played. Dragon, a Bruce Lee story.
I don't think I played that one.
No.
That thing was so insanely difficult for what it was.
Did I?
You
was
needed...
that for Mega Drive?
Yeah, it was Mega Drive. You needed the 6-button controller to play it properly.
I think I played that game.
So yeah, it follows the film. But it had a system where the Shadow Spectre, if you watch the film, that comes out to fights Bruce throughout the film. He could just randomly appear. And it'll be a random boss battle. You could just add your first fight, one, and then you got a boss battle. That, if he was not good, you were dead
Definitely
instantly.
play that game.
Yeah. It's one I'd recommend going back to try and play, just to go, okay, they tried to go a bit insane, yeah.
Yeah, I remember playing like Shaq Fu on the Genesis. That's another one from like
I
that
remember
time.
Shaq Fu through Angry Video Game Nerd.
Yeah, I had that game. Not very good, but it's a fighting game.
Yeah.
There's also like a game called Eternal Champions. That was another Genesis fighting game that's like pretty decent. It's all right. The only thing about Genesis, like you said, but if you didn't have the 6 face button controller, like you had to like press like select to like switch between punches and kicks, and it was just, like really awkward to do that.
Yeah.
So
I know in the Bruce Lee one, you needed to do... it wasn't ABC, it was whatever the 3 extra buttons were, X, Y, Z, or whatever. You had to press all 3 of them together to activate your nunchucks, and you just couldn't do it on the standard controller, and that would actually help in a couple of fights.
yeah, that's wild.
But then it's like playing Street Fighter for the first time on the Super Nintendo, realizing, alright, the shoulder buttons, they actually are extra punches and kicks. So, playing a bit of more combat, and you just got 2 punches, 2 kicks, and I would say you don't have to think more. Then like, right, I got low punch, mid punch, high punch, low kick, mid kick, high kick. And that, for years, was messing with mind. It's one of those ones that you want like an arcade layout, just to like top layers punches, bottom layers kicks. That's fine.
I had a really weird one. Because I mixed and matched, especially on controller, I mixed a lot of, especially on Street Fighter 4. For the first part, I played a lot of, for like the first 2 years, I played a lot in controller, and then I switched to stick. When I actually managed to get my hands on the stick, because it's really hard to get them. It was really hard to get them.
It was to get a Mad Catz T.
Yeah.
Because it was like literally only one brand at the time.
Yeah, it was really hard to get one here in Portugal because no one had them, and I managed to get my hands on one randomly through a buddy of mine that lived in Germany. And I had a really weird button layout for Street Fighter 4 where I mixed and matched like 3 punches and buttons that you wouldn't think about. I even had for example, my triangle was my 3 punches. And since I played a lot of Geef, 3 punches was good. Because you just
for lariat?
Yeah, just did lariat. And EX Green Hand. When you had to lead when you had to deal with fireball characters. Which that game had, like, the best characters are fucking fireball characters. And Geef struggles with Guile. For some reason.
It's pretty tough.
Yeah, and I remember just people played in my control when they tried to play with my controller, was just impossible for them because they would just do shit.
I couldn't do it. Yeah, there was a buddy of mine who did kind of similar thing where he would remap his stick for Marvel because we were playing Marvel vs. Capcom 3, but he wanted to play, and the reason he did it is he wanted to play like Marvel 2 style. But he didn't want to have to like change his buttons every time he plugged his controller in, so he just remapped his stick. So like I couldn't play on it because I just play. I try to play default and everything just so for that reason.
Yeah, so
like,
you can just go to a machine and just jump on it.
Yeah,
go plug and play.
Good. Yeah, that's the only reason why. But there are definitely advantages, like you said, of like if you really get like a certain layout or if you have something in a certain place. Especially, it's really just more about like what's comfortable for the person that's using it. So yeah, but I try to play on default just so for ease for myself usually.
Oh yeah, now you're back, Zeph, to bring back. You played Pokken Tournament DX, didn't you?
Yeah, on the Switch.
Yeah. Because we couldn't
That game
remember
has
if it came out.
Yeah, that game had a lot of has a lot of references to Tekken. Like really a lot of them. Because most of the Pokemon that you play with have either like moves from Heihachi or from I think it's Pikachu that has that does
Yes,
electrics.
yeah, he has the God Fist, right?
Yeah, he does electrics. It's really hard to do, just like in fucking Tekken. But he does that. And you have like this special version of Pikachu that's a wrestling character that does a lot of moves from King.
That must be hilarious, being now Pikachu going up against Charizard.
Dude, that game is fucking sick. It has a really weird movement, you might say, because the camera style is behind your character. In some way, it's not like Tekken where you initially see them side by side and you fight it out. It is behind you, and you need to position your character for some moves. It plays a lot like a mixture of Tekken and the old Naruto games.
Like an arena fighter, right?
Yeah. Because you do have the assists. You can combo in the assists into your in mid combo. I remember the one I used the most was Svinny. I don't know if you know what that Pokemon is. It's one of the starters, a green one that turns into a snake. So Svinny does Whirlwind when he comes in. So you can do like I played a lot of Pikachu, so you can do like a combo, like 5-6 hit combo into super, come in with with Svinny, just OTG him, and just continue the combo right after. The game is really technical, and I think it was a bit mistreated because not many people played it.
Yeah, I was saying before. I think a lot of it had to do with it was first released on the Wii U. Honestly,
Yeah,
I know. I remember I was still entering tournaments when that game came out, and it was just really hard to have tournaments like at your typical stores because you had to, unless people were just bringing their Wii U's with them, because you had to have everybody had to have their own screen.
yeah.
So it's not like that's a bit different than like me bringing my like going to my local shop and bringing my arcade stick and my book
Yeah.
bag or whatever. Like you got to bring your whole thing to be able to
Yeah.
play
Yeah.
Pokken. So it's kind of hard in that regard.
I think there was
But
a couple
it
of
was a very
games
good
that
game.
there was a couple of games that come out on the Wii U because of the Wii U's lack of sales. They kind of it was a bit of injustice in that sense. So like Splatoon, Xenoblade Chronicles X, we're still kind of waiting on that one to be. So like Mario Kart 11 as well, that finally got ported to the Switch. Did Splatoon or was it just Splatoon 2 came out, or did the first one get ported to the Switch as well?
I know 2 and 3 are out on the Switch.
Yeah, I think it was just they went for the sequel. Yeah, there's plenty of games that like I think just they were trying to break in and make their entry, but on the Wii U was a bit of a flop.
Well, we've been
Yeah.
going about an hour now, gents. We've talked about present and past. Let's look towards the future. What games are you excited for that coming out? Or perhaps a game that never got released in the West that you would have liked to come over? Because that's what I'll be choosing for this. I'll let Ash go up first, since he's not a fighting game guy.
But to say what I say, in particular, are we a fighting game that's coming out soon?
Yeah, we also define the games for this.
Ah,
Or something that you want to play after the
Well,
discussion
okay.
tonight.
we've discussed. Yeah, so the Persona fighting games, I definitely want to go back and have a crack at. That's probably what I'm going to be looking forward to.
Zeph?
Well, it's talked about Tekken 8 and Street Fighter 6, but I think the new Riot game. I think Project L is going to be a very good game because it has a good foundation. It was built upon an already existing game, very old game that didn't go that well, made by people that were in the fighting community.
Rising Thunder.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's the same game. It just has the Riot characters in it, and League of Legends characters. I think that game's gonna be sick.
Adam, how about you?
Yeah, I think it's probably the same for me. I think it's Project L. I'm a big like I said, like the Marvel vs. Capcom game. So it's like a 2v2 fighter, which makes me a bit more excited. So if there's like some movement options with like kind of those kind of things, I just prefer that style of game. So I'm excited to play that. I mean, obviously Tekken 8's a big one. If we're going unannounced though, I'm really hoping MK12 gets announced soon.
Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
like
we
to
had
play
that
more
leak.
already. Yeah.
Yeah, we had the leak then. Edward was like, Injustice 3? But yeah, new Injustice just as good.
Yep.
Because I love what they've been doing with that franchise. Especially since MK versus DC Universe was a bit of a weird one.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah. We didn't talk about that game. That game's a broken mess too.
Oh, they're broken in so
yeah.
many ways.
Yeah.
But answer the question for myself, Mortal Kombat 12 would be one I'd be very excited for. But for me, it's one I want brought to the West. Especially since there's a bit more resurgence and hopefully a new game before too long, is Tales of Versus.
Oh, yeah. No, that's true.
Like, I know you could, get it on the PSP and play it in Japanese and stuff, but I want to, try and get an English cast. 'Cause just for my name being Flynn Lowlight, Flynn is actually from Tales of Vesperia. So it's a little nod to the Tales of franchise there. And with that, folks, we are done with another episode of the Within Crisis podcast. Ash, Adam, Zeph, thank you so much for joining us. Adam, do you want to let people know what you're up to?
Not too much in the realm of game stuff anymore. Just doing a lot of work, but you can find me on Twitter. I think he's got my tag below. So yeah, if you ever want to talk about fighting games or Final Fantasy 14 or American sports, pretty much a lot of stuff. I'm interested in a lot of things. So yeah,
Fingers in many
typically on
pies.
there. Yep.
Zeph, how about you? What are you up to lately?
Just playing Destiny and a bit of PoE, and that's about it. I haven't had the time to play 14. I probably never will. So it is what it is.
Yeah, you'll get back at some point. Ash, how about you, buddy? What are you up to lately?
Obviously, I've been jumping on 14 from time to time. I have been a little bit preoccupied, but I think I'm going to go a little bit nostalgic and probably going to pick up the Final Fantasy Sprite Collection when that comes out, because I just love the old school games.
Yeah. What are you going to pick them up on?
See, I was going to pick them up on Switch, but I actually might pick it up on PS4. Have it up on the 85-inch.
Yeah, that's how you do it.
It'll look amazing. Stretch.
All the pixels.
See all the pixels. Yeah.
Just have it broadcast against the other wall and you start painting the pixels to match the scene. Just get your Gilgamesh up on the wall.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. As for myself, I will be back next week. Ash, are you available Monday?
Yes, should be.
Cool. In theory, on Monday, we are going back into Final Fantasy 14 with Deep Dungeon, getting our descent into Eureka Orthros done. I think we are at 441. After the initial 3-second wipe by Twintania the first time through, forgetting what twisters do.
Yeah, that still makes me chuckle.
Yeah, and then Wednesday, Thursday next week, I will be back doing Middle Earth Shadow of War, getting through that, trying to make a Nork insane, and hopefully they don't die by accidental fire and other shenanigans. In the meantime, you can find me at Twitter, Flint_Lawlight, find Ash at Noah0250, and more importantly, find us at Twitter, .com/Within Crisis and Within Crisis Podcast over on YouTube, which this will be going up on soon. So cheers, gents, and catch you again.
Yeah.